It is June 21st, 2022. We're at the Pyle Center. I'm Michelle Hirsch with Laura Bautista. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
We'll go through several questions, and we'd like to start at your beginning, which is when were you born and where?
I was born on a dreary day. No, I have no idea. It's September 11th, 1952, in Miami, Arizona. So I'm a native Arizonan.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Fortunately, my mother saw the light, and we moved down here when I was 5.
Okay. So did you go to elementary school here?
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I only went to kindergarten in Miami,
Mm-hmm.
and then first grade on up to ASU.
Where did you go to elementary school?
Florida Elementary School.
And middle school or junior high?
I went to McCamey. Mm-hmm.
And high school?
McClintock.
And so what year did you graduate from McClintock?
In 1970.
And did you have any extracurricular activities, favorite teachers in high school or even elementary school? But we like to ask about your teachers or experience in high school.
I loved high school. I was a well-known nerd. Is what I like to think of myself as. I was on yearbook staff, and I was in choir for 3 years, I think. And I tried band for a year and decided I'm not a clarinet person. I was on Girls League. I think that's about it.
And then from McClintock, you went to ASU.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you study at ASU?
I actually started as an American history major, only because, going back to your other question about favorite teacher, my favorite teacher at McClintock was my American history teacher, Jim McBride was his name.
Oh, wow.
He was fabulous.
Yeah.
He had the best dry sense of humor of anybody I know. And then irony, what I loved about it too is just like life just plays funny little karma games or little mind games. In my junior American history class, he would frequently refer to when he was in the Air Force, because he was an enlisted person in the Air Force. And then he retired, and then that's when he got his teaching degree. But he was stationed at a place called Laughlin Air Force Base in Del Rio, Texas. Well, while I was at ASU, I met a man that was in the Air Force ROTC. And Mike and I ended up getting married, and we were stationed at Laughlin Air Force Base in Del Rio, Texas for 5.5 years. So when I ran into Mr. McBride a couple years after Mike and I got married, I told him, you're not going to believe where I'm living right now, because it's a dump. It's a border town. It's right on the Mexican-Texas border. So, and this is your typical border town. So, but Mr. McBride had a huge impact on me. I still love him to this day.
Oh, and that's fun that you were able to go back and tell him and connect with him again.
Well, he lived here in Tempe, and he shopped at the same grocery store that my mother shopped at, so they would run into each other periodically. So somehow or another, he always knew kind of what I was doing anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So when I came home, I believe it was probably right after we were stationed in Germany for 3 years, and when we came back home to Luke, we lived with my parents until we bought a house, and so I ran into him at the grocery store. So.
And where did you buy your first house? What neighborhood?
Copperwood. Oh, my parents' house or my house?
Well, I was thinking of the first house you bought.
As an adult?
Yes.
Okay, it was in Glendale.
Oh, okay.
We were stationed out at Luke Air Force Base.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Mike didn't want to live here. I tried to convince him, let's live in Tempe, and you just drive. It's not that big a drive, and there was no freeway, so it wasn't an easy shot. But no, we ended up in Glendale.
And so when did you relocate back to Tempe?
When Mike and I got divorced.
Mm-hmm.
I came back home because at the time we were stationed in Vegas at Nellis Air Force Base, and so I came home because you always come home.
And home is with your parents?
No.
Oh.
No. And by that time I was in my mid-30s, and I had I think my son was 10, if I remember correctly. So no, I moved in with my best friend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, how about if you tell us a little bit about your parents and maybe what they did and
Sure.
where they were from and how they influenced you, perhaps?
Well, both my parents were born. Both of them were first generation American born. All my grandparents were born. Well, I take that back. 3 of my grandparents were born in Mexico. One was born in the Pima Indian Reservation, just outside of Tucson. So they're first American born. then, and they grew up in Miami. I mean, they are Miami bred, born, and all that kind of stuff. And my father was a miner. He worked in the mines there until my mom's parents owned a grocery store in Miami when she was growing up. So, and I tried to find out, and I couldn't get a specific date. So somewhere in the mid-40s, my grandparents relocated to Tempe. And they owned this grocery store in an area, in a neighborhood called Victory Acres. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Grandma and Grandpa owned one of the two grocery stores there. And it was called La Victoria because it was on Victory Drive. And it was a second home to me. So when we moved to, my mom decided she wanted us to move here. My dad had to follow. And so we lived with my grandparents in that house in Victory Acres, and that's when I started at SUE. And because I was just starting first grade when we moved from Miami to here. And then my parents bought a house on 10th Street, which is just south of Apache, north of University, west of Price, and east of McClintock. So in that little pocket there, it's still very undeveloped, still old houses, really old houses, because we still own the original house.
Oh, neat.
My family does. So we grew up there. I have an older brother, and we grew up there, and until I think I was 16 when my parents bought a canal home that is off of just right walking distance from McClintock. So we finished up there. I finished up there, and that way I could. My dad, he always says because he didn't want to have me get my driver's license. So if I could walk to school, he wouldn't have to.
Oh, that's clever.
He was a pretty smart man. He was pretty smart. In 1963, because I'm not, and my father is a recovered alcoholic, and he's recovered only because he died sober, and he had been sober for 48 years when he had died. Wow. So he sobered up in 1962. June 16th of 62 was his anniversary date or birthday, and a year later, my parents opened up their own business. Because in the meantime, my father had learned the business of upholstery.
Oh,
He was
okay.
a furniture upholsterer, and they opened up a business on Apache Boulevard. I don't know if you are familiar how Tempe looked in those days, but there was an A.J. Bayless grocery little strip center.
Okay.
And my dad owned his shop was right next door to A.J. Bayless.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that will remember that kind of plaza.
I
AJ
still
Bayless
get people tell me, oh my God, the couch your father upholstered for my parents is still in our living room. And I go, well, guess what? The one he upholstered for me is still in my house.
That's
so
awesome.
he was an artist. He was a craftsman. And so then, it was a family business. So we were there. That became our life. Was the Anthony's Interiors and Upholstery was the name of his business.
Wow.
And he was opened. I think I was thinking of that on the way over here. I think he was open for 35 years when they finally closed it, because they moved from that location. My parents had purchased some land off of Mill and Southern, and they ended up building a commercial building there, and then that became their business location.
Mm-hmm.
And they were there until, let me think. Because I was in Germany at this time,
Mm-hmm.
so the years just kind of get muddied. I think they moved into that building in '81, and then somewhere in the mid-'90s is when he closed.
You mentioned second home, the grocery store that your
My
grandparents
grandparents.
had. Did you ever hang around your dad's upholstery?
Oh God, yes.
Yeah.
We were there all the time. I probably less than my brother. My brother was much more helpful than I. I was really very truthfully, very resentful that our whole life shifted from here to there. And, it was one of those, I had to go to school by myself, and I went to school activities because everything focused on making the business successful. And we were very fortunate. It was an incredibly successful business. My parents did very, very well with that. And old Tempe people will remember it because he was around. He just was very, very good. And we were there a lot.
Well, and so your father's interiors and
Upholstery.
upholstery certainly must have had an influence on you as
It
well.
did.
And his entrepreneurship
Right.
ability.
My mom was a designer for him,
Okay.
and so and she was also his seamstress. I mean, there was a family business, and so when I did work there, I answered the phones, I put away the samples and all that. My brother would do the deliveries, etc. But well, it's absolutely, well, ironically, as I said, I started at ASU to be an American history major, and then about the middle part of my freshman year, I realized the only thing I really could do with it is probably teach. I don't like kids that much. So I was, do I really want to be stuck in a classroom with a bunch of 16-year-olds? It's not the best idea for anybody, quite frankly. So that's when I switched my major to interior design. With my son, I have one son, and he was in high school, and it was the first time apparently he heard that I had started off at ASU as a history major, and he realized, he goes, "You don't like kids. What makes you think you would have done?" I go, "I don't know, Jay."
I think a lot of people are influenced by really great teachers, and so you want to be like
And I
teachers
loved
that you
history because I had a professor right after Mr. McBride. He actually got his PhD and became chair at ASU of the history department. But prior to him doing that, I had an incredible American history teacher there that was just fabulous. Dr. Kearney was his name, and he was just riveting when he would tell. He was a storyteller, so he told our history via stories. And I also had, I can't remember his name. He was a Hispanic. He was actually from Mexico. Teacher that taught Mexican American history, and I took that my junior year, I think, at ASU. And that was the first time I heard the Mexican side of American Mexican history.
Wonderful,
and I heard about the Mexican side of the Alamo and the Mexican side of the settling of Arizona and California. And I'm not gonna lie, I was horrified. I was absolutely horrified. And which is probably a good reason I did not go to teaching American history, because I saw it in a whole different slant. Because when I was growing up in Tempe, again, the Victory Acres was a largely Hispanic or a Yaqui Indian community, as just like Guadalupe is. And as a matter of fact, they were both in existence at the time. And I knew a lot of kids from Victory Acres because I worked at my grandpa's grocery store. And so these kids saw me on the playground, and I'd see them with their siblings. If they spoke to their siblings on the playground in Spanish, even hola, they were sent to the principal's office. It was absolutely forbidden to have any second language spoken on the school grounds. And again, even as a 6-year-old, I knew that was wrong. And so then when I took that Mexican American history class when I was 18, 19, 20 years old, it was just, makes it even more wrong to me. So it was really an eye-opener.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's nice that you share that aspect, that real aspect of history. My bonus mom, the mom that raised me, her first language is Spanish, but she wasn't allowed to speak Spanish as a young person. And people say to me, "Why didn't she teach you Spanish?" But it was very clear that she thought that we should not speak Spanish.
Absolutely.
And so I think there was a generation raised with that kind of thinking.
My parents in Miami, Arizona, when they were going to school, the schools were segregated. They had a school for Anglos or white kids, and they had a school for the Mexican and the Indian children, and that was inspiration was for the Mexican kids, and I think it was inspiration. But in junior high or at some point in their early teens is when they commingled the two cultures, or the three cultures for that matter, and it made it really difficult. Both my parents were Spanish speaking first, was their first language. My father didn't graduate from high school, nor did my mom, quite frankly, but Daddy, more so than my mom, was very embarrassed by his accent, and he felt many times that it held him back, and he was made fun of because he did the lazy shush, and those when he was tired especially, you could hear his accent. So we spoke English first in our house.
I hope that he realized, I'm asking the question, in the summation of his life, that he was successful and proud of that.
He was. One of his proudest moments was to go back to a high school reunion in Miami. And he was kicked out of school because his alcoholism was just starting to take hold in his early teens. And he was kicked out of school for, I can't remember the reason, probably drunk in class for all I know. And the principal, when he kicked him out of school, told him, "You're going to be a failure, you're never going to succeed," all these horrible things. And my dad had an inferiority complex as it is, which he shouldn't have. He was so smart and so talented, and he was probably one of the most beautiful men I'll ever know. He was gorgeous. I mean, he was the most handsome man at his own funeral, quite frankly, and I told him that. And so he went back for his high school reunion. I think it was like his 30th or 40th, and he wore his gold nugget wristwatch and a gold nugget wedding ring. And he had just bought a beautiful suit, a very expensive suit for those days. And he said, "I'm going to go show that man."
Good for him.
Yeah, that was, I think, a very proud moment for him.
Do you know how many years your parents were married?
They were married 48 years, I believe. He died, I think. Yeah, 48 years.
Did you have any other jobs in high school, or what did you do right after you left ASU?
I worked at Harmon's Kentucky Fried Chicken. I don't know if you've heard.
My maiden name is Harmon. We've definitely heard of Harmon's.
Kidding. Yeah, okay. I worked at the barn. I worked in the barn.
Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was my very first job. My best friend was working there, and so she got me a job there as a setup girl. It wasn't fun. I didn't like it. I don't think I lasted very long. And then in college, I started working at the Tri-City Mall. It was brand new at Baker's Shoe Store. So that's where I worked if I wasn't at my parents' house, at my parents' business. So. Yeah.
And I read that you're also a realtor.
Well, I have my real estate license.
Okay, so at one point you were interested in doing that, and
well, actually, what happened is I was working for a company that is TDC Interiors. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, and in their and it's TDC stood for Tempe Decorating Center, and I worked there for 10 years. And I was very successful there. I worked in their builder division as a designer.
Is that at Rural in Guadalupe?
Yes,
okay.
It is. And I loved that job, and it was very profitable for me. And because by that time I was single anyway, and it crashed. The builder industry, literally right before my very eyes, it crashed. And John went out of business, the owner of TDC Interiors, and nobody was hiring. I mean, nobody was building. There were no design firms. They're all going under. So my brother and sister-in-law came to me, and they said, because I have a salesperson's personality and I can talk to a wall, so they figured, why don't we do this? You get your license, and we start buying investment properties. And then we remodel them, and then we flip them. And so that's what we did for, I believe it was about 2 or 3 years. And it was actually a lot of fun and very successful. Mm-hmm. And then the profit margins started shifting. And so, but I did that. And that was really the only time I really was active in it. Mm-hmm. So, because I also discovered I don't like having people in my car for like hours and hours. I am only charming for about 45 minutes.
We'll keep that in mind.
I mean, we got a half hour, so we're doing good. And I'm like, really? You don't want to buy this house? Are you stupid? I mean, really, And so, and I did not like, so many people are involved in a real estate transaction, and you could lose a sale because of somebody else's stupidity. And in the design field that I was in, I was commission based. If there was a mistake made, it was my mistake. I'll own it and I'll take responsibility, but it just aggravated the living heck out of me for somebody else to make a mistake, and it cost me a commission. Yeah. So I didn't do well with that. But what I liked about the flipping is I got to be the buying real estate agent. I pretty much became the GC, the general contractor for all, because I had all the contacts. I knew everybody, tile people, carpet people, cabinet, countertops, window coverings, painters. I had all that resources. So we did that, and it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it, and then I became the selling agent. So it was fun. We had a good time doing it.
Can you tell us a little bit about yours? You have one child?
I have one.
Your son, Jason?
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about him and his family.
Jason is 46, and he's everything to me, obviously. He was 10 when we divorced his dad, and at the time we were stationed at Nellis Air Force Base, so we came home, and it's really funny because he now considers him an actual desert rat because he just loves the Arizona heat for some particular reason.
Yeah.
And he went to school at Corona. Yay. And graduated from there. And then, as I say, he took the Arizona college tour. The only university he did not go to was U of A, which was okay with me because I went to ASU. And then the bottom line is the reason he kept playing the college game is because he had wanted to join the Marine Corps when he turned 18. And as I said, his father had retired from the Air Force as an Air Force fighter pilot. So he knew the military life, but he knew it, as I told him, he knew it as a dependent son, not as an active duty member. And so when he was going to enlist, when he was 18, I literally said, no, you can't. You got to give me 2 years. Give me 2 years. I was very concerned that when the military, and being in the military is not a bad thing. I'm not bad-mouthing it. But you get an 18-year-old child. You can mold it any way you want to. And I had seen it over and over in the course that Mike and I were married almost 14 years. And I just did not want that for him. And so he promised me he'd give me 2 years, and he did. And then one night he said, Mom, by the way, I'm going in tomorrow to sign my contract with the Marine Corps. So he joined the Marine Corps in 1998. And then he was actually stationed in Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. But he got to go to Japan and got to see a lot of the world. And he had already, since, as I said, we were stationed in Germany, he was 3, 4, and 5 when we lived in Europe. And he got out of the Marine Corps in December of 2002, and then he was recalled February of 2003 because the Iraqi war was starting. And he didn't go to Iraq, but what he did was essentially he went to Camp Pendleton to fill in for the troops that had been sent to Iraq. He was recalled again. He's got 3 discharges. I think he got recalled one more time, and then he signed a new contract in 2004 to go to Iraq. He specifically wanted to go to Iraq. It was one of those situations, as he said, Mom, I've been trained to do this job. I want to do it. So he went to Iraq in 2004, and we were fortunate. He came back home in 2005. So he now works for Homeland Security. He works in the Immigration Department, which I'm very proud of him.
Oh, that's great. Yeah,
he helps people become American citizens, so I'm really, really proud of him. He's been married to a terrific woman. I've told him that's the smartest thing he's ever done. And Christy is brilliant. She too is an only child, which I think is very interesting. Mm-hmm. And she works as a legal paralegal, but she has, and I'm just going to be so annoyed if she reads this, she just got a new designation that's new for the state of Arizona. So she can pretty much do everything an attorney does now. She works in family law for a firm here in the Valley. And they have 2 absolutely stunning little girls.
So you're a grandma.
I'm a grandma. And he was 33, I think, when he got married. And I looked at him and I said, and I had wanted him to wait a long time to get married. I got married when I was 20, so I really wanted him to not do that. And when he got married, I said, okay, I've been a grandma in training for a very long time. I'm ready to do it. And so they had their first child, I think about a year and a half later. And Ava was born, and then Scarlett was born. So he has an 11-year-old and an 8.5-year-old girls.
Cute.
And they live in the Mount Clark, Ahwatukee foothills area.
And how nice that they're close.
So I would always be close to them. I would haunt them. So he may as well stay here.
Do you have any special memories of Tempe, whether it's events you've attended or even restaurants or shops that you've enjoyed?
Do you know one of my most vivid memories, and somebody just posted something about it on Facebook, and it just deja vu'd me back to when I was 9. We would, ASU had season tickets for kids through the school district.
Oh.
And it was called the Knot Hole Club, okay, KNOT Hole Club. And your parents would buy you season tickets for, I don't know how much, $10, who knows what the cost in those days. And so I can remember, I was 9 years old, the very first time I went to an ASU football game, and I remember looking at all the lights. I was on the field, the game was already over. And my brother was probably holding my hand, making sure I didn't get lost, because I was looking around and I remember thinking, I have to go to school here.
Oh, that gives me goosebumps. That's awesome.
I just had to go to ASU. I was just so enamored with the whole thing. And the football field, the ASU Sun Devil football field, was relatively new in those days, because prior to that they played at Goodwin Stadium.
Okay.
And then the Sun Devil Stadium was built, so it was almost a brand new stadium when I went to there first time. It was so impressive. I was just beyond thrilled to go. So that's huge. You know, we did Tempe. When my son and I came back home, he was 10 years old, I think. And we would go into the grocery store many times, or at any store around town. Mervin's used to be just across the street, as a matter of fact. And I would run into somebody that I went to high school with. And he would just look at me and goes, Mom, how can you know so many people? And I said, Tempe is a very small town in a really big city. And I think that's what you have all these grandiose memories of how simple it was. And it was. I mean, the furthest southern tip of Tempe when I was growing up prior to McClintock opening was Broadway.
Wow.
You know, and you just can't even fathom that. Mm-hmm. And at Broadway, because the railroad tracks go cross between Broadway and Apache Boulevard. Well, at Broadway and McClintock, there was instead of the under thing from the tracks, it used to have an overpass.
Oh.
It was 2 lanes wide, and the barrier wall, if you want to call it, were just wood that were about this high, so like how it would help you if you took a wrong swerve. And it was so steep, and I can remember when I first started driving, I would do anything to avoid it, because it just like, no, I'm not doing that. Mm-hmm. But it was fun. So I remember those kinds of things. I mean, there was only McClintock, there was only Tempe, there was only Gilliland and McCamey, you know. And all the schools fed into the same junior highs or high schools and such. So you always knew people that you were in school with. So that was the fun part. And then when so many of us went to ASU because it's home, you know. So it was fun going to ASU and running into a lot of our friends. So it's a very small town in a big city, and it still happens.
Yeah.
You know.
And in recent years, we've heard about a lot of bars and restaurants and places closing that were iconic.
Oh, yeah.
The Vine
Monty's and such.
Exactly.
It was heartbreaking. Yeah.
And
exactly.
So sometimes you have favorite places that aren't here anymore, but then sometimes you have places that you still go to and enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember, seriously, when TGI Fridays opened, it was TGI Fridays. It was on Rural, and it was on Apache Boulevard by Lemon Terrace Club, which is not called Lemon Terrace Club anymore. These apartments that are there. Chico's was there. There was a Mexican restaurant that was really, really good. Monty's. Yeah. Harmon's. I mean, it was a small town. It's the 50s and the 60s. People didn't go out to dinner the way we do, So it was an event when the family went out to dinner, unless it was there was a hamburger place, a drive-in hamburger place that was called Copper Bowl. That was on Apache Boulevard, and it had trampolines. And I remember liking to go there because we could jump on the trampolines as we were waiting for the hamburgers to go.
Yeah.
But it's
just fun. And so you've mentioned a lot of ways that you feel connected to Tempe. Are there either organizations that you're involved with, or anything that is in that way that you're involved with. I think you have a business. And
I work for a company called Dow Tile. It's in Tempe.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever heard Dow Tile is the largest tile distributor in the United States. Distributor and manufacturer. I've been there for almost 10 years.
Okay.
It's right off of Rio Salado and 52nd Street, so it's really, really close. And it's kind of fun being over there and being a part of Tempe again, because I really actually live in Chandler right now. But Tempe literally is on the other side of my probably my parking lot. But you know, it's my whole life, quite frankly, are my grandchildren. If I have free time, I pick them up and we do crafts together. We just go get ice cream, and I whatever they want, literally whatever they want to do is what we do. So so I work and then I play with my grandchildren.
Fun. Does faith or spirituality play a role in your life?
I am a very spiritual person. I was born in the Catholic religion, and I actually got married at Mount Carmel Catholic Church when I was brand new. When my brother got married at Newman Center, which used to be called Mount Carmel Church. It used to be the old Mount Carmel Church. And then Mount Carmel built the new one off of Rural, and that's when it became Newman Center. And I got married, I think it was actually within the first year it was built. And so I am not, I consider myself a recovered Catholic, but I am very spiritual.
And this is sometimes an uncomfortable question, but we mean it in the best way.
Okay.
How would you like your friends and family to remember you, think of you?
And I do think the people that matter, okay? And I think all of us have experienced this in the last 2.5 years. I filter through the people that don't matter, or I don't matter as much to them. So I have a very small, tight core of friends, but it's a much smaller group of people than I would have expected to have at this point in my life. But I know for a fact they would all say I'm incredibly loyal, and I'm a lot of fun.
We can tell that already. We're not even past the 45 minutes. I don't know. We'll see at the end.
It's so true. But my friends mean, my best friend was we met when we were 15 years old. And she is the godmother to my son, and she will be my best friend till we die. And
does she live nearby?
She's still in Tempe.
Oh, great.
Yeah, she's always lived in Tempe.
What is her name?
Marilyn DeSount Wolk. Actually, she might be somebody you might want to consider. Coach Wolk.
Okay.
Is her father-in-law. Ned Wolk is her father. Well, he's obviously gone now, but that's her father-in-law. So yeah, she's still my best friend.
Oh, that's great to have such long-time connections.
And most of my friends are from high school and college. So it's just, we have taken the test of time and have passed. So.
Oh, how fun. Is there anything that I didn't ask you? Maybe stories that you might want to share, people that you knew? You think about this in terms of your grandchildren, your granddaughters will watch this someday. What about your life, maybe something you want to share that you hope that they know about?
One of the things, I do still love Tempe, and I have said this many times. First of all, the Tempe I grew up with is nothing anywhere close to what we see today. I do not happen to be one of those people that boo-hoo over the fact that Tempe has grown and we have skyscrapers. I have to still say that when I drive past Mill and I'm on the 101 or the 202, whatever that number is, I'm still oh yeah, we do. We have a skyline. I forgot about that. I like the fact that they would learn that I came back home. I think home is really important to a lot of people. It's a calling card for me. It was someplace, and I moved back here after I was divorced in 1988, and I have absolutely never planned, unless my son were to move in, then I would be gone. My grandchildren ask me a lot of questions. They're at that very inquisitive age, and like, what was it like in high school? And I was a very well-known nerd, and so I did not date, I don't think at all. But that was okay because I was in yearbook staff, and I would tell them, pick an activity. I don't care what it is in high school that just enlightens you and makes it fun. And my best friend was on yearbook staff, so we did. And the people that I was on yearbook staff, it became a life for us. So you pick something that you really enjoy. My oldest daughter, granddaughter, loves theater. And I said, then go into theater while you're there. It's just such a great opportunity to explore so many aspects and fringes of who you want to be, and hopefully nobody judges you. If they do, tell them, because you are just safe. You're in a safe place. You're home, and your parents love you, and we're going to protect you. And I think that's what I want them to know: is family is safe. You should feel safe, and you should feel safe in your core set of friends. And I have said this: my best friend is my yin to my yang. I'm noisy. She's a retired school librarian. Isn't that adorable? I still think people from high school go, really? You're still friends? Interesting.
Do you know what school she was a librarian at?
Roosevelt School District. She was in the Roosevelt School District, yeah. And so she was a wonderful librarian because she was elementary school. So she told me every book to make sure my son read.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he became a voracious reader as a result, because I love to read. And so she made me read to him every night. And I take direction really well. I lived in Texas at the time, and she would call me up. Did you read to him this week? Yes, I did. So, and that's, because life is going to take you in so many different places, and so many people are going to judge you good or bad. And just be that person that can say, oh, well, if you don't like me, that's okay. It doesn't make a dent in me. It doesn't dissolve what I have accomplished to this point. It took me a long time to get there, and so I'm hoping they have that sooner than I did.
Well, and to share that example of family's important, longtime friends are important, people that you trust and surround yourself with are important. You're setting that example for them.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. And my son, when he was growing up, and he would say, because Marilyn is his godmother, and I would run into, I have a group of college friends that we have brunch the day after Christmas every year, and I think this year is either our 49th or our 50th year that we have done this. We're in dispute about it. I say 49th year, but Jay would literally say to me, Mom, how do you stay friends with people for, at that time it was 10, 15, 20 years? And I go, Jay, give us some time. You might surprise yourself. You might surprise yourself. So right now, his best friends are the kids he went to junior high school with, which is well over 20 years ago. Yeah. And so I looked at him one day not long ago, and I said, it wasn't that hard, is it?
It is probably easy for young people to maybe not understand that as much when they're younger. They're busy and they're going in different directions, and people are going to different colleges and doing jobs and families, and sometimes you lose a little bit of touch with people, but then you can come back.
Absolutely. So. I still have a dear friend of mine, and seriously, I went 35 years without seeing her. She and her husband, he's deceased now, and my first husband, we were duplex neighbors for 4 or 5 years when we were stationed at Laughlin Air Force Base. Wow. And she still asks how Jason is, because she goes, that's my boy. I was the first one that she knew that had a baby, and so she was my duplex neighbor. So she would come over and take him out of my house to go have him out for a while. So it's just that string of really valuable people. And yes, I'm judging them. You won't want to keep you, not so much. But I want strong women, especially. I want my girls to see strong women.
Yeah, well, you definitely seem like a good example of that
for
your granddaughters.
I really hope so.
Thank you for sharing this time with us.
Are we done? It's 45 minutes?
We'd like to open it up to if anybody else wants to ask some questions. Terrific. So we'll do that.
So this is Dwayne Roan asking this question. You seem to have a wonderful sense of humor. And I'm curious, what role do you think humor has played in your life?
Oh, absolutely everything. My father was a very funny and witty man. I was very close to my dad, as I'm sure you can tell. And we would drive my mom crazy because we would bat zingers back and forth, and she would get so angry. Lauren, stop it. You know? And my dad was so fun and witty. My brother is very fun and witty, and he's 3 years older than I. And my sister-in-law recently texted me because they live in Seattle, and she texted me and she goes, Anthony just gave me a smart aleck answer to a question. And I said, is this what you've done to Laura, since she was a child? And he goes, yeah, pretty much, except when she lived in Germany. So yes, this is how we communicate. And my granddaughters will even say, you're the most sarcastic of all my grandmas. So, sarcastic, funny, same thing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking.
Do you know any stories about your grandparents in Mexico and so forth?
My grandma, I was named after her. Her name is Laura. She was orphaned and was adopted by her aunt. And she was actually raised in Juarez, right outside of El Paso. My grandpa, my mom's dad, these are my mom's parents. My grandpa was born in the Durango area. And then my dad's father was very colorful. He had a checkered past, and he escaped the Federales in Mexico and jumped a train and came into the U.S. And he was an artist. The last couple of years he was alive, he had tuberculosis, and so he had a long process of dying, and so he went back to his artistry, and I have some really great art pieces from him, and it's very primitive, but it's still stunning. And there's one of him running on the top of a train as it's running down the tracks, and he says, I was escaping somebody. My dad's mother I didn't get to know as well, but my mom's parents immigrated to U.S. in the, let me think, probably in the, my mom was born in 31, so I would imagine like 1928 time frame, because all her siblings were born here in Arizona. And they settled in Miami, opened a grocery store there, and very successful. I think it's, considering that, first of all, my grandmother never learned how to speak English, never. And my grandpa spoke very broken English, and so they managed to carve a very good life and raise 6 kids. So, and my dad's father, he was a crop worker, you know, so he was all over the U.S. And then he landed in Miami, so interesting. I didn't know my dad's parents as well. We gravitated to my mom's more, so.
Do you know the name of the grocery store that was in Miami?
In Miami, if you hadn't have asked me, I probably would. I can't remember.
Well, that's okay.
I'm so sorry.
Did you have some photos you wanted to share?
I have some. I do. As I said, I went to my scrapbooks. Literally right before I got here, so they're not even. This is my grandma and my grandpa on their wedding day. My mother's parents.
Just a little higher. Okay.
Your grandma and grandpa on their wedding day?
Uh-huh.
And that's your
mother's parents.
Mm-hmm.
Can I put it down?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is a wedding in 1957 that I was in. I don't know if you can recognize me.
Which one are you?
On the far right, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bottom right.
I was
yeah.
5.
I can see your precociousness right there.
Yeah, I was a member of Angel Flight at ASU. I don't know if you ever heard what Angel Flight was. Back in the day, this was the ROTC. There was the Army ROTC at ASU and the Air Force ROTC at ASU. And they had a female auxiliary type of sorority, for lack of a better word. The Air Force Auxiliary we were called Angel Flight, and then the Army Auxiliary was called Cadets. And so I was in Angel Flight, and this is us right here.
Oh, very cool.
And we wore, believe it or not, okay, picture this. In 1971, 72, and 73, we're walking on ASU's campus in these uniforms. Now, you do realize Vietnam was happening at the time? And this was not necessarily a popular thing to be doing. But I can remember we always used to laugh is because our skirts, you'll notice the skirts were a fingertip.
Can you point out where you are in that photo?
I am right here.
Oh, there you are, right in front.
Because I'm short. They put the short girls up front. And I was in the Angel Flight drill team. Angel Flight was a great experience, and that's actually how I met my son's father, because he was Air Force, ROTC. And the year Mike and I got married was in 1973, and we got married in July of 73. Between June and August of 73, 14 angels got married to Air Force ROTC guys. That also tells you a little bit.
Yeah.
One of the things that was really incredible about being in Angel Flight is, this was in the Tempe Daily News. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Oh, of course.
We were one of the first, oh gosh, how did I put, Viva. Do you remember? They were the POW bracelets that were being sold in the early 70s.
Yeah.
Viva was the organization that sold them. And so we became a part of them, and as a result, we met so many of the ROTC, the POW MIA-wise. This is my former husband. That's me. This is.
Yeah, let's lift it up a little bit.
Lift it up a little bit.
I wanted to just 1 second. Let me see who she is. Oh, James. Okay.
So this is your former husband,
Mm-hmm.
and
I'm in the middle, and the woman to this side of me is a POW wife.
okay.
And so we had the opportunity. There were all of Angel Flight and the male organization, because keep in mind in those days women were not that much active in the military. It was mostly the guys. It was Arnold Air Society was the fraternity, so to speak. So we became very affiliated, very tightly wound into the Viva, and we got to meet a lot of the POW MIA wives. I had my bracelet was of a gentleman named Jack Bomar, Lieutenant Colonel Jack Bomar, and at one point they came to Angel Flight and Arnold Air and asked us if we could become like a big brother, big sister to some of the kids of the POWs. So Mike and I started working with a family, Jack Bomar's family and Ruth Bomar, and they had, I think it was 4 boys. And it was an incredible experience in life to share that with them.
Well, and as I recall, I would have been in middle school, early high school. It was a little trendy maybe to wear, those POW bracelets, and but to actually get to meet family,
it was an incredible experience.
Go beyond
yeah.
just
I mean, we
were
were a part of its initial growth here in the Valley, which is really something I know all of us were very proud of. All my still friends, although I have a lot of friends still from that organization, and I just was reading. I saw a picture of a POW in 1973, because Mike and I were both married in 73, right after they were the last release of the POWs. So Jack was able to go to our wedding, which was really incredible to have him and his wife. And the stories, I mean, they would tell us, one of the stories that is so adorable is Jack Bomar looked very similar to a Colonel Wagner, who ended up being somebody we knew later on in life. They looked very similar. And when one day I was talking, Mike and I had just come back to Arizona to visit from Del Rio, and I was talking to Ruth, and I was telling her who Mike's squadron commander was, and she goes, "Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed." And she goes, "Please don't tell him this story." I go, What, Ruth? And she was given a picture right after Jack was shot down, and was told it was Jack, and she took it to bed with her. She talked to it at night. She did, it was her lover, so to speak, for he was gone 6.5 years, almost 7 years. She found out later it was Colonel Wagner. I feel like I was kind of intimate with somebody. I'm like, I'll never tell him, but I think that's kind of funny. And so it's fun. It's fun in that aspect to see that interweaving of life, to have gotten to meet Colonel Wagner 5 years later. It was incredible. I had Earl Hopper Jr. too, because I wore 2 bracelets, and he never came back. Earl Hopper never came back. He was from Glendale, so it was an amazing opportunity.
And that is a part of history that the youth of today don't know about unless their family tells them.
They don't know anything about it. it's when Jason was going into to go to Iraq. He had a friend, and his father returned from Vietnam. He went in as this 18-year-old kid, and he came back damaged, and which so many of them do. And I remember when Jason was literally, I think he was going to be leaving the following weekend. He was going to be deployed, and I said, "You will never. When you come back, you're going to have to answer to me." I said, "I'm not going to allow this to happen to you."
Mm-hmm.
And we fought hard
Mm-hmm.
for him to come through that. We fought really hard. So he's one of the ones that got through it, which is not an easy thing.
Well, and another example of the strong woman that you are, the strong mom. You know, so.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure he was thinking that at the time. It did not make it easy for him. But.
Well, thank you again, Laura.
Thank you.
And great stories about Tempe and your long connection here.
I love
so
it
we
here.
appreciate you sharing them.
I love it here. I love Tempe.
Yay.
And I say it right too. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you, Laura.